You mentioned Drake Maye, so move on to him. Honestly, the Jaden Daniels, I'm definitely seeing things differently personally, so thank you for that. Now, with Drake Maye, he's really been my QB2 in this class. Like, I think the upside is just so high with him. But honestly, I started charting, where, like, it's easy when you just watch through. Sometimes the good stuff can kind of stick in your head, and the bad stuff, it's like, all right, that was that. Then I started charting, and I'm like, okay, like, I'm being honest, he's very inconsistent, especially last season. Then you go back to 2022, it's a little bit better. Obviously coaching change might have something to do with that. The footwork seemed a little bit more consistent. So I'm curious from your perspective, when you look at where his footwork is kind of now, where he's got, the narrow base, the slow heel click, all the, buzzwords, all that fun stuff. But then if he comes to New England, he's going into a West Coast style offense with Alex Van Pelt, where he's got his own style of footwork that he's going to drill into this guy. Do you think that the issues with his mechanics are things that are reasonably fixable? And if so, what would your expectations be maybe, throughout his first season, just to set some kind of bar so people understand what to realistically expect?
Yeah, I think with Drake Maye, I'm doing a breakdown tape for all these guys. So I posted a 7-minute one of Penix earlier. I'm about to post one of JJ and then post one of Bo later today. Drake I'll post tomorrow. And I didn't mention this in the video, but as you were talking, I'm like playing back plays that I've seen from all the film that I've watched of Drake Maye. And he, in my opinion, does the opposite of what coaches in the NFL coach you to do. Mm-hmm. Not in a bad way. Drake doesn't read with his feet. Yeah. He reads with his eyes.
Right.
Okay, so because he's doing that, sometimes his feet are out of whack, which can then affect his accuracy at times. But it's not like so egregious that it's not fixable. Okay, so I give Drake Maye grace, because if you were to look at Troy Aikman's feet when he was with the Cowboys, right, one of all-time great Cowboys, and you compared him in his prime to the way that Aaron Rodgers' feet are in his prime, you'd be like, okay, well, one of these guys is wrong, right? Because A-Rod's footwork is completely different than Aikman's footwork, but it worked for that guy.
Right.
So I'm interested more so for Drake, not to say, oh, man, his feet are all over the place. It's like, well, people said the same thing about Aaron Rodgers, and now everyone's copying him because they see that it works. I want to see if what Drake does is what's best for him. Okay. So when he gets into the NFL and he gets that NFL coaching, do they realize that, okay, if we try to clean up his feet to make him look like someone else, is that really what's best for him? That's what I'm more interested in, because everyone will tell you, hey, if your feet are off, your accuracy is off. And sometimes that's true. But it's really more so about having a consistent throwing base and getting your hip through on those throws when you can't step into a throw. And for me, that's what I see when I watch Drake. I'm like, okay, he was a little high on that one, but was it his feet, or was it because like something else mechanical was a little off? Because he's reading with his eyes to where it's supposed to be a 3-step drop, and he takes a 1 rocker. And now he's sitting there hopping, waiting for the rock to go. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It makes the throw. So I've been very cautious to be like hella critical of Drake, because I watched him. I called his Clemson game this year, and he missed more throws in that Clemson game than any other game throughout the season, even more than the NC State game. And I went from the NC State game, when I watched it back, impressed by Drake Maye.
Really?
And the reason I came away impressed is this man missed a bunch of throws early in the game, and I actually detailed this on ESPN. He missed a throw boom to his left early in the game. He threw it in the dirt. You know what I'm talking about.
I know exactly what you're talking about. Yep.
Yeah. It was bad. Yeah. He came back later in the game and threw a touchdown in the same direction. Ball to his left, threw a touchdown to his
tight end. Yep.
You know what I'm saying? So, I was impressed by that, because it was like, okay, you had a bad throw. You know who else had some bad throws? Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Eli Manning, Aaron Rodgers. John Elway, they all had bad throws, but you got to play the next play, and he did that. And honestly, like, I watched the NC State game, and if I was a scout or a coach, a head coach, a GM, an owner, and I saw how he reacted in that game to the adversity he was facing, I would feel more comfortable drafting him. He never quit in that game. They were down big. He never quit. If you remember, he actually went out late in the game. He got hurt for a series. If you don't, that's okay. I've watched every single snap of all these quarterbacks. He went out the series before the last series of the game with an injury. Came back in. They had no chance of winning. He came back in and finished the game. Now, he threw an interception that bounced off his guy's hands. But,
yeah.
it was the thought of, this is a meaningless game for him. He's leaving. He's going there for his last game.
Yeah.
And he still finished it because he wanted to be there for his brother. So I came away impressed with the mentality because the skill is there. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't try to change who Drake Maye is. I would just try to make him consistent. Hey, fam, if you're going to do that little thing with your feet, do it every time. Because if you do it every time, you'll be more consistent because your body will get used to that. We just can't have you doing it this way one time and this way another time and this way another time. Mm-hmm. Don't be so critical to say, he's got to be this. Because I can tell you right now, nobody throws like Lamar Jackson.
Right.
Nobody has the same footwork. Nobody has the same throwing motion, but he has his own, and he's mastered it. And that's what I want to see for Drake. What is his throwing motion, you know?
Absolutely. The consistency is the biggest part of it. Again, even 2022, it just looks the same more often than it did in 2023. And you talk about the way he fought at the end of games. I forget which game it is, but you know the 4th and 21 where he's getting hit in a blowout and then just lets that thing rip down the side. Like he had a few touchdowns in blowout games where it's like they have no chance of coming back. And there's no quit in this guy. And you saw it at his pro day where he had some bad throws early on and then was like, no, let me go back and do those again. So I completely agree. I like the resilience he's shown consistently.
Testing my skills on Prize Picks this season is the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. If you have the skills, you can turn $10 into $1,000 with just a few taps. Use the code CLNS for the first deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy.
I guess the only other thing I'm just curious with you about is that in terms of processing, I felt like sometimes he would just get through his reads so fast where he's going to one side, back to the other side, then he's coming back. Stuff like that. Maybe some of the superheroics where I think in terms of ball protection, for the most part, like he's got a turnover-worthy play rate under 2%. I think that generally he does a good job protecting the ball. There are some times where he can make plays, but then it also backfires where he tries to make a throw last second and then he gets stripped or he tries to throw across his body. Do you think that's just something with experience? Like he'll figure out what he can and can't do, especially with the processing once he gets more calm and experience, but you don't want to take away some of those superheroics because those are the things that make him special.
Yeah, 100%. You want to talk about the experience. I was a 4-year starter in college, right? So I started as a freshman, then I tore my ACL as a sophomore. Not a lot of people remember that because they remember the Heisman. I actually thought my career was over my sophomore year. So I started as a freshman, started as a sophomore, then came back as a redshirt sophomore, started again, and then started as a redshirt junior. I had 4 years, really 3 years and 3 games of like full-on college football to get better. If you saw me when I was a freshman All-American, but I was a different player as a freshman than I was as a redshirt junior. Okay. I ran for 280 yards in a game as a freshman against Washington State. I probably gave myself 50 more yards, but it was a lot. It was over 200 yards. You know, as the years go on, the yards just keep adding up. You know what I'm saying? So,
every day it's another couple of yards.
I ran for like 230 whatever yards in that game. I never touched that again in my college career. By the time I was a redshirt junior, I was throwing for 300, 400 yards a game. Mm-hmm. Right? That was the progression. If Drake Maye had gone back for another year, would he have been a better player? Yes. You talked about the heroics. Pit game. When he's doing his own read. Receiver releases down the sideline, corner comes off the receiver, and he throws it to the receiver with his left hand. Yep. Okay? That's incredible. You don't do that unless you're comfortable with who you are as a player and know that, hey, I got this in my bag of tricks. Yep. But when you talk about the reads, we talked about Jaden and how he was going from skipping from 1 to 2 and going straight to 3 to 4. Mm-hmm. He was doing that because he started 56 games in college.
Right.
He knew when to skip. Sometimes with Drake, he would skip when he didn't need to skip.
Right.
When he needed to go 1 to 2 to 3, he would go 2 to 3 to 4 because he was thinking, oh, I remember this look, and it would sometimes catch him off guard. There's nothing wrong with that. You live and you learn. The more you play the game, the better you get at the game. So if you see him scanning across the field and going back, maybe he missed something on that particular play. But that doesn't mean he's a bad player. It doesn't mean that, like, I saw some of his interceptions in that NC State game. I think he threw 3 picks. 2 of them weren't even his fault.
Yep.
And I'm like, but you look at the box score, and they're like, oh my gosh, he was terrible that game. And I'm watching the game, I'm like, he really wasn't that bad, guys. Like, you are gassing this for likes or whatever. So for Drake, I do think it's something that over the course of time he can improve. I still think he needs to sit a year. Mm-hmm. I think if he plays, he will play well. I've heard some people say that if he plays, he won't play very well, and it'll be catastrophic. That's not true.
No.
Too talented.
Yeah.
Way too talented to not play well. Mm-hmm. But will it be what's best for him? I don't think so. I think he needs that Patrick Mahomes year. Sit down, learn NFL offense, learn how to make throws in the NFL. Tyreek Hill once told me that the first time he saw Patrick Mahomes play in practice, he said that guy will never be a starter. You're talking about Patrick Mahomes, a guy who's the second greatest quarterback in NFL history already and chasing Tom Brady's GOAT status of 7 rings. And Tyreek Hill said he'd never start in the NFL. You got to give guys time to develop. Drake Maye needs that year to where he can develop and not have any stress or whatever and truly get in bed with the team that he's going to be with.
I agree. And then even just look at the processing. Like, if this guy's getting man coverage, he's trying to throw down the sideline. If he's getting covered too, he's hitting the seam, he's hitting the honey hole. It's like, this is not a guy who doesn't know how to read a defense. It's actually incredible what he can process. And like, oh, the heat's coming from over here. He'll immediately take the snap and start drifting because he knows pressure's coming. Like, it's not a dude who's not like QB savvy. It's more that, no, sometimes you just make mistakes and sometimes you got to learn from those mistakes.
You're talking about that throw against Clemson. I know what you're talking about.
Yep.
They had the play action pass. His tight end in the wing spot ended up chipping and going to the flat and left number 17 to blitz him. Drake Maye drops back, drifts to the right, throws it off his back foot, and hits a crosser for a touchdown. I know that because I watched it, but I also broke it down in the tape. So it's like he has those types of plays. You're like, you can't coach that.
Exactly.
He has a feel for the game. It's not like he's just a robot out there and he's strong arm, fast. I can't process. That's not what he's doing. He is processing. He's just a young player. Give him a chance to develop, and I think whatever team drafts him, they'll be very happy with him.